They say power can blind even the kindest leaders, that once you sit on the throne it becomes harder to hear the cries from the street. But President Ibrahim Traoré wasn't like most leaders, or at least, he didn't want to be. He had grown up watching the same struggles his people face now. Empty plates, corrupt men in suits, promises that disappeared like smoke. And even after becoming the president of Burkina Faso, something inside him kept whispering, "Don't lose touch. Don't become one of them." It was just after sunrise when Ibrahim made a decision that would change everything. No convoy, no flashing lights, no uniformed guards. Just him, two of his most trusted bodyguards dressed like ordinary men, and a plan that made even his wife nervous. "You're not untouchable anymore," she had said, helping him fix the collar of his white shirt. "There are people who want you gone." Ibrahim had smiled gently, kissed her forehead, and walked out the door wearing nothing but a cap, brown trousers, and determination. The market was already alive when he got there. Women shouting prices, children chasing each other between dusty stalls, smoke rising from grilled meat stands. No one noticed him. To them, he was just another man, a customer, a face lost in the crowd, and that was exactly what he wanted. This was his home, but it had become distant. His advisors painted a rosy picture. "The people love you," they said. "The reforms are working." But Ibrahim had learned a long time ago that people in high towers only see what they're shown. He needed to feel the ground beneath his feet, to see, hear, and understand. Without filters, he passed a meat seller slicing goat ribs with practiced hands. A woman shouted at a boy for trying to steal bananas. And near a rusty cart of tomatoes, two young men argued over the price of onions. Life was moving, struggling, surviving. It reminded him why he had chosen the harder road, why he had turned down bribes from foreign companies, why he had refused to sell his country's soul for convenience. Then he heard it. A strange sound in the middle of the crowd. Not music, not shouting, but a voice coming from an old broken radio. It crackled with static but managed to push out a sentence that stopped Ibrahim in his tracks. "Breaking news. The president is in danger. Traitors plan to strike tonight." At first, no one took it seriously. The voice belonged to a boy, maybe 12, standing on an old metal box with a plastic cup in front of him. His clothes were torn, face smudged with dirt, but he spoke like a seasoned reporter. The people laughed, tossed a few coins his way, and moved on. They thought it was a game, but not Ibrahim. He felt something tighten in his chest. A chill ran down his spine, and for a brief moment, everything else blurred. He pushed closer, pretending to be just another curious man. He asked the boy casually, "Where did you hear that news?" The boy narrowed his eyes. "Why do you want to know?" "I just like radio stories," Ibrahim said. "Never heard something like that before." The boy jumped down. His expression turned serious. "It's not a story, Uncle. I heard it last night, on my shortwave radio. Real voices. They said tonight's the night. They said the president's name. I recorded it." Ibrahim's breath caught in his throat. This was no prank. This boy had stumbled into something dangerous, something real. And if he was telling the truth, then the very people Ibrahim trusted, those closest to him, were planning his assassination. The boy, whose name was Ismail, pulled out an old recorder. It was scratched, dusty, held together with tape. But it still worked. Static filled the air, then faint voices emerged. "He must be gone before morning. Tonight, during the council meeting, our men are already in place." Ibrahim listened, heart racing. One of the voices, he recognized it. It belonged to someone from his own cabinet. Someone who had stood beside him just the day before. He looked at Ismail, this boy from the street, and suddenly the whole situation changed. This wasn't just a coincidence. This boy had saved his life. "I need you to come with me," Ibrahim said. "Why?" the boy asked, now unsure. Ibrahim slowly removed his cap. "Because I believe you." The boy's eyes widened as recognition struck. You're... Yes, Ibrahim replied, but not here, not now. From that moment on, everything moved fast. The guards became alert. A quiet signal was sent. They needed to get back to the palace without drawing attention, but they weren't the only ones listening. Somewhere nearby, hidden in the crowd, a man in plain clothes pulled out a phone and made a silent call. "It's him," he said. "He knows." And just like that, the quiet day at the market turned into something else entirely. As they slipped through the alleyways of Ouagadougou, a black SUV waited in a shaded corner. No lights, no sound, just shadows and tension. Inside the vehicle, Ibrahim sat beside Ismail, who clutched the recorder like a lifeline. The boy stared at the luxurious interior, the leather seats, the cold air. "Is this real?" he asked quietly. "It's real," Ibrahim said. "You're sitting beside the man they want to kill." Ismail swallowed hard. "So, what happens now?" Ibrahim looked straight ahead. "Now we plan. But tonight, we walk into the lion's den." As the car disappeared into the dusty streets, no one noticed the young boy's corner had gone silent. The speaker that had shouted warnings now played only static. And somewhere, not too far away, someone else was listening, watching, waiting, because the president had heard the truth. And now, the clock was ticking. The car drove through the back roads of Ouagadougou, leaving behind the morning crowds, the smells of grilled meat, and the echo of the boy's radio. Inside, the air was cold, but the tension was rising. Ismail sat stiffly, his small hands wrapped around the old recorder like it was the last piece of truth left in the world. Across from him, President Ibrahim Traoré was quiet, staring out the window, but his mind was racing. Everything he had built, his reforms, his battles against corruption, the sleepless nights fighting for change, it was all now in danger. And the betrayal didn't come from the outside. It came from within. Ismail glanced at him nervously. "Why would your own people try to hurt you?" he asked, voice low. Ibrahim turned to him and smiled sadly. "Because I said no to money. They couldn't resist. Because I stopped them from stealing. Because I chose the people over politics." Ismail looked down. He understood more than most. His father had been a soldier. He died during a border conflict. After that, Ismail's life became a blur of cold nights, street corners, and learning how to fix old radios with broken parts and sharp instincts. Back at the palace, things were already shifting. Commander Coup, head of presidential intelligence, received a quiet message from Ibrahim. "Return immediately and prepare for a possible internal threat." Coup didn't ask questions. He knew his president. If Ibrahim was reaching out without protocol, it meant something serious. He gathered a small trusted team and began reviewing security for the night's upcoming presidential council meeting. On paper, it was just another policy session. But now it was clear, someone planned to use that very meeting to strike. While Ibrahim and Ismail reached the palace through a hidden entrance, another story was unfolding. In a quiet office 2 floors above the main hall, the Minister of Defense sat at his desk, sipping tea and reviewing documents. He had a calm face, a smile that fooled many, and eyes that gave nothing away. But deep down, he was waiting for confirmation. The plan was set. The president was supposed to walk into the council room tonight and never walk out. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, a man named Caleb prepared something far more dangerous. A former soldier turned mercenary, Caleb had once worked for the intelligence unit, but was discharged for leaking secrets to outside groups. Since then, he had become a ghost, moving between borders, always working from the shadows. Tonight he was back, and he had been assigned one task: clean up the loose ends. His target? A street boy with a recorder. As the sun dipped lower, the palace buzzed with controlled activity. Guards were doubled, back entrances sealed. Coup met Ibrahim in the private study. "You're sure about the voice?" he asked after hearing the tape. Ibrahim nodded. "I've sat beside that man for 5 years. I'd know his voice anywhere. Sekou rubbed his jaw. Then we can't go in blind. Let them show their face first. We'll let them think they've won. But we'll be ready. Ismail sat quietly on a couch nearby, eating warm food for the first time in days. Every few minutes he glanced at the radio, as if worried it might stop working. The president walked over, sat next to him. "You've done more for this country in one day than some men do in a lifetime," he said. Ismail shrugged. "I didn't mean to. I just like listening." Ibrahim smiled. Sometimes listening is the most powerful thing of all. But as night crept in, the danger grew. Somewhere outside the palace walls, a message was delivered. The boy had survived. The plan had been exposed. Caleb received the update and didn't waste time. He changed his plan. No longer just surveillance. Now, it was extraction. Silence the boy before the recording went public. At 10:30 p.m., the presidential council began to arrive. Men in suits, faces calm, hands extended in greeting. Some of them had no idea what was about to unfold, but a few were hiding something. The council room was elegant, polished wood, quiet lights, and guarded doors. The atmosphere felt like any other high-level meeting. But beneath it all was a storm waiting to break. Ibrahim entered at exactly 11:10 p.m. He wore a simple suit, but under it a lightweight bulletproof vest. His pen was modified to send a silent alert. His watch synced with Sekou's team. As he sat at the head of the table, smiles greeted him. But his eyes scanned each face carefully. The Minister of Defense raised his teacup in greeting. "A peaceful night, Mr. President," he said smoothly. Ibrahim smiled back. "Let's hope it stays that way." They began the meeting with reports, budget, updates, agricultural concerns, water supply forecasts. But just as the defense minister began presenting security plans, Ibrahim's earpiece crackled. It was Sekou. "Sir, we have a problem. There's a signal. Someone's transmitting audio from the room." Ibrahim's throat tightened. "How close?" he whispered. "Inside the room. Someone's wearing a transmitter." The clock was ticking. And somewhere not far from the palace, another clock was ticking too. A van had pulled up near a hidden back entrance. Caleb, dressed like a palace staff member, slipped inside with forged credentials. He moved silently toward the guest wing, toward the boy. Inside the council room, Sekou's team narrowed the signal to someone on the president's left. Ibrahim turned slightly. 3 men. One of them had to be it. Suddenly, the Minister of Defense knocked over his cup. As he bent forward, Ibrahim caught a blink of red light inside his jacket. It was tiny, barely visible, but enough. He pressed the signal button in his pen. Outside, the palace power shut down. Everything went dark. What happened next was chaos. Windows shattered, smoke filled the room. Guards in night vision burst in and grabbed the targets. Within seconds, the traitor was exposed. The transmitter ripped from his coat. He screamed, "They forced me, I had no choice." But Ibrahim had no mercy left in his eyes, and just when it felt like it was over, another message came. "Sir, the boy's room. He's gone." Ibrahim froze. The lights returned. He rushed down the halls, heart pounding, footsteps echoing. When he reached the room, it was empty. The bed unmade, the window wide open, a single drop of blood on the floor, and, now with everything coming into light, the boy who saved the president had vanished. What happened to Ismail? And more importantly, who helped take him? The storm wasn't over. It had only just begun. The room felt colder than usual. President Ibrahim stood in the empty guest room, his eyes fixed on the open window and the small drop of blood on the marble floor. His fists clenched. The boy who had risked everything, Ismail, was gone, taken from under their noses inside the most secure building in the country. The guards scrambled to search the palace, but Ibrahim already knew. This wasn't just a kidnapping. It was a message. Whoever was behind the plot had deep roots. This wasn't just politics anymore. It was war. Commander Sekou arrived seconds later. One look at the room and he understood. This was planned, he said. Someone helped them from the inside. Ibrahim nodded, then whispered, "Check the tree near the kitchen wall. That's the only way they could have climbed out without being seen." As guards rushed to follow orders, Sekou added, "If they took him, they won't keep him in the city. We'll lose them if they reach the airstrip." That was it, the airstrip, a private one used for emergency foreign evacuations. Ibrahim knew it too. He turned fast. "Prepare the chopper. I'm going there myself." "Sir, it's too dangerous," Sekou warned. "They expect you to stay here. That's why I have to go," Ibrahim replied, already moving. Meanwhile, in a dark van bouncing along the outskirts of Ouagadougou, Ismail sat tied to a chair, mouth taped shut, bruised but still alert. Across from him sat a man with a cold smirk and a scar on his cheek, Captain Caleb. "You made a lot of powerful people nervous," Caleb said, lighting a cigarette. "All that because you couldn't keep your mouth shut." The driver chuckled. "He's just a kid." Caleb shook his head. "No, he's a symbol now, and symbols are dangerous." They reached an old warehouse near the airstrip. Ismail was dragged inside, placed in front of a table where Caleb tried playing the recorder. But there was nothing. No audio. No tape. "Where is it?" Caleb growled, grabbing Ismail's shirt. The boy glared back. Caleb ripped the tape from his mouth. "Where's the recording?" Ismail spat blood. "I hid it. You'll never find it." Caleb raised a hand to strike again, but his phone rang. A voice on the other end said, "Change of plans, the president is on his way. Take the boy to the jet, we don't have much time." As the van headed to the strip, back in the city, a young janitor cleaning the broken street speaker found something odd. Taped behind the old battery case was a tiny memory card. Curious, he handed it to a nearby palace security officer. Minutes later, Sekou plugged it into the command center computer. Audio played, clear, undeniable. Voices plotting the assassination, Ibrahim's name, the council meeting, the plan, the guards. It was all there. The real proof. By then, Ibrahim's chopper was already flying low over the city. Wind thudded against the windows. He sat silently, eyes locked ahead. "We catch them at the strip," he said. "We end it tonight." At the airstrip, the jet was already preparing to take off. Ismail, bruised and exhausted, was shoved up the stairs. Caleb followed, gun in hand. "You should have stayed on your street corner," he muttered. Just as he boarded, the sky exploded with thunder. A military chopper dropped down fast. Thump, thump, thump. Searchlights hit the runway. Soldiers in black jumped out, rifles ready. "Drop your weapon," one of them shouted. Caleb panicked. He grabbed Ismail, pointing a gun to his head. "Back off or he dies," he screamed. But from behind the soldiers, another figure stepped forward. President Ibrahim himself. No armor, no helmet, just calm eyes and purpose in his walk. "Let him go," Ibrahim said. "It's over." Caleb's hand shook. "You're too late." But he didn't see the sniper behind the storage shed. One clean shot. Caleb dropped, gun flying from his hand. Ismail stumbled forward into the arms of a soldier. Ibrahim rushed over, grabbing the boy tightly. "You're safe now," he said, voice cracking. Ismail, despite everything, smiled. "Told you the tape was real." "You did," Ibrahim whispered. That night, the nation held its breath. A live broadcast was streamed from the palace. The president stood in front of the people, not alone but with Ismail by his side, now wearing a clean white shirt, a bandaged brow, and pride in his eyes. "My fellow citizens," Ibrahim began, "tonight we faced betrayal from within, but we were saved not by spies or soldiers but by the voice of a boy. A boy with a radio, a boy who refused to stay silent. The country listened in silence. Some cried, some clapped, but all felt something they hadn't in a long time. Hope. In the following weeks, arrests were made, hidden documents uncovered. Names that once held power now stood on trial. But something else happened too. A new unit was formed, the People's Guard, made of ordinary citizens, students, even street boys. Trained not with guns but with awareness, to protect the truth, and Ismail, he was given a home, a school, a future. But he stayed the same, curious, honest, brave. Every Sunday, President Ibrahim would sit beside him near that same street corner, listening to the old radio crackle. "Still works?" he once asked. Ismail grinned. "It always works, sir. You just have to listen." And in that quiet moment, with no cameras, no crowds, just two people and a broken radio, something was clear. Burkina Faso hadn't just survived a crisis. It had been reminded of its strength, that no one is too small to make a difference, that truth, no matter how faint, always finds a way to speak. And somewhere across the dusty rooftops and crowded streets, a nation stood taller, because one street boy chose to be heard.